Well, hiring people is usually a signal failure. You've hired smart people and you're still the bottleneck. You're not scaling, you're leaking. And you probably don't know where yet. That usually means you've avoided a hard decision somewhere in the past. And it's not because you're lazy or because you're a bad business person, but because the decision would change how you operate. I know that sounds a bit uncomfortable because everything you've been told says growth means hiring. Pressure means you need help. Busy means you're doing well. Now, that's a story that's everywhere in business. But most founders don't hire because they're scaling. They hire because something in the business isn't working yet. And like most founders, they try and plug that leak with people. That's the common path to take. Now, let me describe something you've probably done. Your revenue starts climbing, your deals are closing more often, and your pipeline looks fairly healthy, but delivery starts to feel, well, let's call it heavy. You get more questions, more edge cases, more things that just don't quite fit within our box. So you say, okay, I need one more person. And that helps for a bit. And then you say it again and again. And then you have to hire somebody because they need to be managed. And on paper, that looks great, you know. But in reality, your calendar's full. You've got messages on all the media that you've got that just don't stop. And you've been pulled into decisions you thought you'd escaped years ago. And this is the moment most founders call scaling, but it isn't. It's compensation. It's compensating for something the business hasn't learned yet. Now, why does that keep happening? Good question. You can see this in the data. And in most growing companies, headcount increases faster than the output or the results. But I assume you don't need a study to tell you this. You've probably felt it. And you'll feel it when progress slows, when your handoffs break, and when simple work takes longer than it should. And here's why it happens. Because complexity grows faster than your revenue when the system isn't clear. And when the system isn't clear, people don't create leverage. They create demand. Demand for answers, demand for decisions, demand for reassurance. And if you add people to an unclear system, you don't get speed and leverage, you get a dependency. And that dependency, I call it the founder trap. And I've seen it play out so many times in the last 3 decades, I just can't count. A founder hits a few million in revenue and they start hiring fast. They're good people, they're capable, and it's people they really do trust because it's the core of their business, the core business people. And the first few weeks or months feels great. It's high energy, the team feels bigger, and there's a sense of, well, momentum. But 6 months later, something changes. The business is louder. Everything feels slower, and somehow it needs the founder more. Now, this might not be for you, but here's why it happens. It's what I call a translation tax. Every new hire needs context. They need to know at least 3 things. What was sold, why it was sold, and what good looks like here when it's delivered. That's normal. But when all of that lives in your head, you become the permanent Google translator for your business. You explain things again and again and again and again. You know, what do we promise? Is this normal? Can we do it this way or not? And you end up recording videos or looms to reply to those messages. And you reply late at night and you jump onto calls that you just shouldn't have to do. That isn't leadership, it's translation work. And the more people you hire, the higher that tax becomes. And I call that a decision bottleneck. And those decisions start to stack up. And they're not the big strategic kind. They're the small ones, the dangerous ones, the ones that are like, is it your scope? Can we promise this? What should we prioritize today? Individually, they don't look all that serious. Together, they slow everything down. And suddenly nothing moves without you. You're not leading it in a particular direction. You're approving movement in the business. You didn't choose to be chief approval officer of your own system, but the system ended up choosing you. Because when things aren't clear, decisions always travel in one direction, up. And in the founder-led company, that means you, of course. And you get the illusion of relief when you hire. It feels good at first, it feels like progress, and it feels like, well, relief. But here's what really happened. You didn't remove the work. You spread confusion across more heads. It's a bit like somebody coming into work with a cold. Eventually, everybody's got it. Now, instead of one confused person, you've got 5 or 10 or maybe even 20. And all of them need answers from you. What real scaling actually feels like, and I presume you felt this possibly partly before, it feels boring. And that's the truth. It doesn't look impressive for the outside. And that's exactly why most founders avoid it. Scaling doesn't feel like motion. It feels like silence. It's fewer random questions, fewer explanations, fewer decisions that land on your desk. And things still move. They just don't need you to move. Scaling happens when the business knows who it's for, what problem it solves, and what happens next. By default, always, without you saying it. When that's true, hiring of course works, because people plug into that clarity, not into you. So the real question isn't, do we need more people? The real question is, why does the business need me so much right now? If the answer is you're explaining too much, you're fixing too much, you're rescuing too much, hiring just won't fix that. It'll only make you busier. Now, there's an invisible line most founders cross and they don't know they've done it. But before it, growth feels exciting, chaotic and manageable. But after it, growth feels heavy, slow and dependent. And the business starts shaping itself around you. But you don't notice that at first. Because it happens one hire at a time, one shortcut at a time, one postponed decision at a time, until one day you realize the business doesn't really work without you holding it together. That's not failure. That's what happens when a system grows around a person instead of around clarity. And the longer you stay there, the harder it is to leave. And if you're honest, It didn't start this quarter, did it? If adding people made you busier, not freer, you didn't scale. You multiplied a dependency. Real growth isn't about building a bigger team, like a lot of people would say. It's about building something that works without you, holding it together. And that's the game most founders don't realize they're playing until they feel stuck at a line they can't seem to cross.